Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Employee Training, Why Short Video Gets Big Results. My name is Jessica. I'm on the marketing team with BizLibrary, and I'll be the host for today's session. Before we get started, I want to go through just a couple of housekeeping items. First, what you should see on your screen. On the left-hand side of the screen, this is the webinar viewer. So this is where you'll see the content that we're sharing with you today. On the right-hand side of the screen, this is the control panel. So this is where you can join the audio portion of today's webinar, and you can also communicate with us through the question box. The default mode for the control panel is for it to collapse. If you want to open the control panel back up, simply click the orange box with the white arrow in it, and it'll expand for you. All of today's attendees are in listen-only mode. You can join the audio portion of today's webinar either through the teleconference line, and you can also listen through your speakers. If you're going to listen through your speakers, I recommend either using a pair of headphones or a headset to get the best audio quality. We like to keep things pretty informal, so if you have any questions or discussion points, feel free to send those over through the question box that's located within the control panel. I like to weave the questions in as it relates to the content that we're discussing in the webinar, and then I'll also leave some time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. I am recording today's webinar, so I'll make a link to the webinar recording, as well as the slides and follow-up information available on our blog after today's session. So that's bizlibrary.com/bizblog. I'll also send out a link to the webinar recording and the slides in a follow-up email. Happy to say that today's session has been approved for 1 hour CE credit for all of you HR professionals attending. I'll make a link to the completion certificate available at the end of today's webinar, and I'll also send out a link to the completion certificate in that follow-up email that you'll receive within 24 hours. The most important thing is the program ID number. That's what you'll need to record with HRCI. If you'd like more information on certification or recertification, I encourage you to visit hrci.org. Again, my name is Jessica. I am on the marketing team with BizLibrary. I graduated from the University of Missouri-Columbia with a degree in journalism. I've been working in the training and development industry now for about 5 years. I'm very active in social media, so I tweet on behalf of BizLibrary at BizLibrary and also at my own account at Jess L. Petrie. I'm also active on LinkedIn, so I like to share a lot of articles and discussions around human resources, training and development, and marketing. So if you're on either of those social networks, would love it if you'd reach out and connect. Presenting with us today is Chris Osborne. Chris is the VP of Marketing for BizLibrary. He's also worked in a consulting capacity with the Paris-based leadership development consulting firm where he helped organizations design and implement leadership and executive development programs. He's been performing learning development and training functions formally since 2000 and informally for organizations since 1987. Prior to Chris's move into the business sector, he practiced law in the areas of labor, employment, and business litigation for over 12 years. He graduated from WashU School of Law with honors in 1987. Chris is also active in social media, so you can find him on Twitter at Chris Osborne STL, and he's also on LinkedIn, so I'm sure he'd appreciate if you reached out as well. Just to give you a little bit of background on BizLibrary, BizLibrary is a leading provider of online employee training and e-learning solutions. The award-winning content library contains more than 7,000 online employee training videos covering every business training topic. So that includes communication skills, leadership and management, sales and customer service, compliance training, desktop computer skills, and more. Additionally, BizLibrary's LMS, or Learning Management System, and social learning technology platform help HR and training leaders improve and manage employee learning. All right, so enough about us. I have a quick poll question to learn a little bit more about the attendees that we have with us today. So you should see the poll pop up on your screen in just a minute. So how are you incorporating video into your learning programs? Is it A, for new employee onboarding, B, internal communications, C, performance support and foundational knowledge, D, some or all of the above, or E, not incorporating video yet?
Hey Jessica, how you doing?
Hey Chris, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Good. So you ready for our client conference next week?
I am. I'm super excited. So we have our annual client conference Align coming up next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So it's always a lot of fun. I'm always really tired at the end of it, but it's one of those good kind of tired where you know you've done a lot and you've met a lot of people and had a lot of great conversations. So very excited.
I am too. And actually, this is going to be the subject of a lot of conversation at the conference and incorporating video into learning programs. So very timely webinar topic for us as well.
Yeah, it's kind of come full circle. So if you think about it, how old employee training videos really are. So actually, Biz Library started a business training library. So it actually was a library of VHS and DVDs, and how it's come kind of full circle where everything's kind of on demand, and the growth of video and the popularity of using it with employee training. So pretty cool.
I agree. Yeah, I think we can probably close that poll out there.
Yep, we'll go ahead and close it and share the results. So it looks like we've got 40% of today's attendees say they're incorporating video in some or all of the above cases that we mentioned. 28% said not incorporating video yet, 15% for new employee onboarding, 9% internal communication, and 7% performance support and foundational. So it looks like we've got a pretty big audience that are using video already. So that's great to hear. I think we have something for everyone, no matter what kind of spectrum, where you fall in the spectrum as far as incorporating video. So again, we like to keep things super informal. So questions, discussion points, comments, send those over through the question or chat box. I'll be monitoring it throughout, and we'll try to weave it all in the webinar today.
Yeah, I definitely. Get the questions coming to us. This is interesting. This is great that we have so many of you already using video. So hopefully we're going to give you some additional ideas about how to expand the use of video. Those of you who aren't yet incorporating video, hopefully we're going to give you some motivation to find a way to do it. The fact that so many of our attendees, a little over 70% of the participants in the poll are already using video tells us that you're already there in terms of the effectiveness and efficacy of video training. So that's really great to see. So yeah, this is good stuff.
Yeah, and Chris, I passed the ball over to you a little bit early, so sorry about that. But there's kind of 3 high-level things that we're going to cover for today. So if you can.
Right. And is that what you see now?
Yep, we're good to go.
Okay. So yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see that come over. My fault. I had the slides obscuring the notes. So sorry about that, everybody. All right. So yeah, Jessica's right. We want to cover 3 high-level objectives for today's webinar. We want to make sure that you understand that there's a business case for incorporating video into employee training programs. One of the things that we are consistently emphasizing in the webinars that we provide is how important it is that we link what we're doing in employee training to business results. And we believe in this. And for a lot of us that are passionate about employee development, employee training, we understand intuitively the link between improved skills and improved ability and bottom line business results. We get it. But it is extremely important that we begin to adopt and use business case vocabulary when we talk to senior leadership and to other stakeholders within our organization, when we talk about the benefits of employee development and particular elements of employee training such as video. So we're going to talk about the business case for incorporating video. We really want to hone in on a specific type of video, short-form video. This is an extremely effective training tool, particularly state-of-the-art short-form video as we define it. We'll give you some illustrations of that when we get there. And then we want to give you some use cases or best practice ideas for incorporating short-form video into employee training programs and initiatives. So let's just start with a little bit of information just to sort of set the stage for why video works so well. We're already sort of professional video watchers. The average American absorbs over 40 hours. This is a stunning number to me, Jessica. I know that I don't watch this much TV, or if I do, I don't want to admit it readily, but 40 hours of television per week, that's how much we spend in front of the television set. Is that Is that really true? That seems like a lot to me. That's a stunning number. Wow, that's an enormous number. And by the way, I don't know if that's a beer bottle or a soda bottle, but yeah, sitting watching TV. I mean, so think about how much TV you absorb, the members of your family absorb. This is really and truly the entertainment and information medium of choice for most of us today. I don't think that's a big surprise. I do absorb a fair amount of video online. I'll freely admit that. But this is a stunning number to me. This is also a fascinating bit of information, and it has to do with our work environment. This is, we go an average. This is really 11 minutes. We found that 11 minutes is the length of time, the interval between interruptions. Now, this is a study performed by the University of California at Irvine. And think about your business day. Just think about how your day goes and think about the number of interruptions that you get. So in an average hour, 5 to 6 interruptions. Does that feel about right? It certainly is true for me. I probably average more interruptions than that, but think about what that's like. Jessica, you looked at this research a little bit more closely than me, but I know you work at home, so you probably have fewer disruptions than I do here at the office, but did this resonate with you? Is this something that made sense to you?
Yeah, it is. You know, that's one of the things that I actually enjoyed about moving, working from home, is that there was actually less distractions. So sometimes it can be, you can think of it as flipped, so people think that, you work from home, you're watching TV all day, or you're doing laundry all day, these kind of things. But I've actually found that, it takes a certain type of person that it will work well in that environment. But I still have those interruptions. So it's not, it's your inbox. It's IM. Sometimes IM is my biggest interruption. So I think we're all faced with it, and we're all kind of become used to it, just as not even in our workplace, but in our day-to-day lives. So how many times are you're walking, you're inundated with advertising and a lot of other things. So.
Well, the other piece of this information that I found fascinating was that the average length of time we spend on any particular task is about 3 minutes. That also surprised me. I'm not particularly productive when I'm doing things in little bitty chunks like that. I tend to need big blocks of time to really do things. But then again, most of the things that you and I work on are working on things like this, putting together content, webinars, writing, and I can't do much in 3-minute chunks. But yeah, this is an interesting thing. So, but when you step back and think about interruptions in 11 minutes, or 11 minutes between interruptions, and then chunks of time, 3 minutes or so to do things, what does that mean for training and development? Are we going to be able to convince our employees and really get motivated for ourselves to sit through a 2-hour class or sit through a 1-hour online course, or is something different needed in this work environment to engage employees in learning? That's really an interesting bit of information. This is a screenshot, Jessica, that I totally love. So would you mind presenting this? Because I love this, but I want you to explain where you grabbed this, because this is a great illustration.
Well, if you think about YouTube, so obviously everyone kind of points to the obvious, like cute cats and like funny puppies and stuff, but there's currently more than 3 billion how-to videos available online. So places like YouTube or Vimeo or some of the other, kind of video websites that we think of. And the volume of free content, it's growing exponentially, like every week. So depending on whether it's, just how-to videos, if it's simple like Twitter Vines, is it MOOCs? There's so much content available to us. It really comes to the challenge that having content that's curated, that it's relevant to our employees. It's really sifting through it so we're not completely overloaded with information. So it's less about not having the content available to us, but making it so that it's usable and relevant to us in our workplace. So we're not wasting time. So this was just a search I did actually in YouTube. I was like, all right, I'll look up how to, and I got, what is that? 2 million.
203 million.
203 million results.
I'm
not sure about that. Right.
I just looked at that and my jaw dropped. That's incredible. And I'd love the third one down. 10 how-to pranks for home and office. Anyway, that's astounding to me. But this is a common way people are absorbing information. If you step back and think about it, you go around your office, and you just do this as kind of a fun experiment. Go around your office and ask people how to change a garbage disposal. How would you go about figuring out how to change a garbage disposal? And unless somebody is extremely handy, they'll tell you, I'd almost be willing to bet money that, well, I'd look it up on YouTube or on Google and watch the YouTube video that came up. Or they'd say, I'll just go straight to YouTube and look at a video. That is, that really is the methodology of choice. Sandy, I'm sorry, I've got a note. If I could speak up a little louder. I'll move the microphone. I'm struggling a little bit with my voice here today, so I'll try to boost the volume. Sandy, if you don't mind, ping Jessica back and let her know if that's a little bit better there. All right. We do pay attention to the comments we get. All right. This is another bit of information which I think is extremely important, and if it doesn't get you thinking carefully about incorporating short-form video in different ways and making access to video immediate and providing it a little differently, it really should. This is a quote from Gunnar Johnson, Google's advertising research director. For the first time, an entire generation has grown up watching content on their own terms. This generation is defined by the internet, mobile, and social, consuming content when and where they want. And he's referring to millennials. And it's not too much far. This is not a horizon event. This is in the very near-term future in terms of strategic planning, that this generation is going to occupy 50% of the U.S. workforce, half. How are we modifying the way we're delivering learning content to our entire organization to take that into account? Do we have content ready to deliver that meets the way this generation is used to absorbing content on their terms, defined by internet, mobile, social, the ability to consume content when and where they want? This is a really, really huge sea change in the way things are working at work. This is another huge, one of these, this sort of great convergence of demographics, behaviors, and technologies. This is a blend of all of those. 9 out of 10 Americans who take their smartphones to work use them for work-related purposes. It's happening, folks. People are using their tablets, their smartphones. If we're not providing helpful, useful information to them, they are using these devices to do an end run around the limitations that we're placing upon their immediate access to helpful information to access it themselves. This is from a Cisco Bring Your Own Device Insights report from 2013. This is a great illustration. The world is tilting away from desktop and laptop computing to mobile computing. This is where it is. This is where it is. This is an interesting, Jessica, there's an interesting thought or question you posted there. Why don't we, this would be a good time to take it too.
Well, I think we'll actually get into it as we go through the webinar, but just getting people to think. So, there's a ton of how-to videos, and we know that it works well in that case, but does video also work equally well for more complex topics? So, how-to videos, you're doing a task. Not all of us have task-related jobs. Most of us are knowledge workers. So is it going to work the same way or work as well in those cases when we're working with more complex ideas or working with things like soft skills or things like emotional intelligence? But we'll get into it more. It's a thought to get people thinking.
I was going to say, we're going to leave that question hanging, and we're going to address it in some detail in a little bit. But I did want you to articulate that for everybody, because I'm not sure people are following the chat. But it is a really, really important thought. Okay. This is some data. It's an infographic that Jessica built for us based upon some research that was conducted by Aberdeen Group. By the way, it's a great research group. If you don't use any of their benchmarking research, you should. It's fabulous. But the research was published in eLearning Magazine in their April-May 2013 issue. And it compared, now this is a comparison of top learning organizations to start with. And it compared business results now, of those organizations using video content, including user-generated video, to organizations who are not currently using video in their employee development training. 81% of these organizations achieved organizational goals versus 76% who weren't using video, had a 68 to 61% level of employee engagement. That's a better than 10% difference. And I love this, key positions are filled more quickly, 61 to 51%. So across three really important business measures, video content had a appreciable impact on business success. Now again, these are all high-performing learning organizations, but the addition of video content, including user-generated video, amplified the effectiveness of these training organizations. Really fascinating bit of data. So the question becomes, how does that work, and why does video work? And we want to tackle both of these pieces because it is extremely important to break this down from a neuroscience perspective, because there are explanations or reasons that video resonates with us. And then adult learning theory, the why, helps us understand why especially short-form video is an extremely effective learning and training modality. All right, let's get into the neuroscience of this a little bit. We are very visual creatures, always have been, we always will be. We absorb visual images 60,000 times faster than text. That, to me, is a staggering bit of information. This is from a 3M study. 40% of all the nerve fibers in our body connect through the retina, and we can take in 36,000 visual messages in an hour. And if you think about the memory, our ability to recall video, it is stunning. According to some popular marketing research, and by the way, there's some great parallels between marketing and learning. According to some marketing research, over a 72-hour period, the average human retains about 10% of what we read. We retain 65% of the static images that we see, but we retain 95% of what we see in video. Now, Jessica built this slide, so I'm going to let her explain exactly what it illustrates, but keep those numbers in mind as she goes through this for us.
Well, if you think about, we've been talking about how-to videos. So if you think about the fact, so you want to bake a chocolate cake. Now, I personally probably wouldn't bake a chocolate cake because I'm not very patient and I don't tend to have good luck with baking. But if I were going to, so you have these different options. So I could read the recipe. So I have a recipe card and it's outlined. And if I was going to go do that again, I would probably retain like 10% of that. So it might not be that good of a cake. If I have a recipe that includes images, so maybe I can see the ingredients being mixed together. I can see maybe what the batter should look like. I can see what the end result should look like. I'll retain 65% of that. Now, if I were to watch a video, I would retain 95% of it. So, and the other thing that's powerful about video is that each person can take away different things from that video based on what you need to know to do it. So maybe I'm interested in the method that the chef used to cut up the pieces of chocolate. Maybe I'm interested in the way that they blended the dry ingredients and combined those with the soft ingredients. So kind of depending on your experience and what you need, you can take away different things than just kind of the static images and text, which I think we all know, and I don't think it's anything that's surprising, but it's just another way to think about it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And if we think back upon sort of seminal events that we can kind of relate to, I mean, think of the space shuttle disaster. I mean, we don't remember necessarily reading articles about it or the still image, but we do remember that shocking video of it exploding. I mean, think of tragic events, but think of also celebratory events. Those of us who live here in St. Louis remember Game 6 of the 2011 World Series, the triple that David Freese hit into right field and the home run into center field to keep the World Series going. I mean, those video images resonate because they connect with us in a different way than a still image and the text. It's just a different way of absorbing information. It really is, it truly does connect to us in fascinating ways. So if you think about adult learning theory, I mean, all the elements of adult learning theory really and truly link up very, very well and line up really well with short-form video. Now let me give you a definition of short-form video as we're going to talk about it for the remainder of the webinar. When we're talking about short-form video, we're talking about a learning video on a single topic somewhere between 3 and 7 minutes in length, okay? Sometimes they're going to be a little longer, but that's the ideal, 3 to 7 minutes, okay, on a single topic. All right, so let's walk through the elements of adult learning theory. Adults tend to be internally motivated and self-directed, and we bring our own life experiences and knowledge to learning. In short-form video, particularly when they're delivered, through a good platform, we're self-directed. We access them when and where we need it. That's totally self-directed and motivated. And another piece of short-form video, which I find really fascinating, is we learn an enormous amount of what we need to know just to function as adults, but also to function effectively at work through observing the behaviors and interactions with others. And a lot of video is about observing the behaviors of others. So video combines those video memory elements with the ability to observe others. So interaction with others when the social component is available is a big piece of the effectiveness of short-form video. Adults tend to be very goal-oriented. Goals can be promoted through short, timely bursts of relevant content. Adults are very relevancy-oriented, easier to be relevant when the content's short and targeted. I mean, think about, we've got a good illustration of this in just a second, sort of the traditional e-learning courses, trying to wade through one to find what you need. Adults tend to be practical. We don't like to be going back to that idea earlier about all those interruptions. Well, if we have, short targeted pieces of content, we can get to what we need quicker. And, we like to be respected while employees manage and control the pace and timing of their own learning. How much more respected can you be in terms of providing learning content to adults? Again, adult learning theory and short-form video line up really, really well. So does this translate? How does this translate? Well, extremely well. Again, short bursts. 5 to 15 minutes illustrated on this slide. We do have some content that's a little longer, but I would define it even a little bit differently. But visual input works best for cognitive transfer from short-term to long-term memory. If you remember, if you go back to your instructional design training and think carefully about that short-term feedback loop, that is, you can retain somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes of content in your short-term memory on a single topic, and you need a break, and then you can commit that amount of content to long-term memory. Okay, that's the cognitive transfer loop. And visual input works the best for that, and short bursts of video content then amplifies the effect and effectiveness of that. And then go back to that research we found from marketing. That's why you remember 72 hours later, 95% of what you watch on video. I mean, there's actual neuroscience and adult learning theories that all tie that together. And if you think back to the idea, the statistic that Jessica shared with us earlier, 40 hours of video, you think about the second most popular website on the internet, YouTube. This is the preferred method for most people to intake new information. Jessica and I usually do this a little earlier in the webinar, but we'll do it here. So if there's a site in which there's a piece of information, Jessica and I both tend to crawl a lot of the same sites, but if there's a site with an article or piece of information that the two of us are interested in, and there's an article that we can read coupled with a video about the article, Jessica, which piece of the content do you absorb first?
Well, I don't think it's a surprise since I've already laid my cards out on the table earlier in the webinar, but I would choose the video. You know, I feel like actually reading the article is more of a commitment. If I watch the video and I am given a context as far as what the article is going to be about, like when and where I can get a sense of who's being featured and what's the important aspects of the article, and I usually will watch that first.
Yeah, and I've gotten more in tune with watching video. I have to confess, you're beginning to influence me in that regard. But I typically lean towards reading the content, particularly if it's an author I'm interested in or it's a site that I've gotten some really good information on before. For instance, I use the Forbes site a lot, and there isn't a lot of video on that site, but I go there frequently for research and to read. So I'm kind of okay with reading. I'm a boomer. I'll be happily admit it. I'm a dinosaur in that regard. So for me, reading, that experience of absorbing the written word works really well for me. I like it. I can think, I can reflect. I also am very visual, so I do enjoy video. So the two pieces work really, really well for me together. But frequently I will read first. But for most people, the preferred method to take in new information is to watch video. We do not take a daily newspaper at home any longer. I do have an online subscription to a couple newspapers, and I will scan sort of 50-50 now between, you know, the 2 to 5 minute videos and then read longer articles, or read articles and then look at supporting video. But that's the way that the world is moving in that direction, and I'm kind of right there with them. This is some great research sort of in this same space. Online training works better, and it's far more efficient than traditional classroom training, though we continue to cling to classroom training in many respects. But the learning curve is substantially shortened when we're providing content to people online. And if you think about why people learn 60% faster absorbing content online, this makes a ton of sense. When you think about it's not disruptive. This is controlled by the learner. They choose when they can learn. And if you've got a solution where they can search and find content that's relevant, that relevancy idea again, relevant to what they're going through in the moment, they can access content that they need in their moment of need, so they're just getting just that piece of content that they want. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? They're only absorbing content that they need. It's not repetitive. It's not disruptive to work. I mean, there's a whole range of reasons that makes a lot of sense. Also, if they don't quite understand it the first time through a 5-minute video, what can they do? Watch it again immediately. Whereas if they don't understand the hour-long class that they went through, they can't very well sit in that hour-long class and repeat it right then. 56% greater gains in learning for many of the same reasons I just mentioned. One, the cognitive feedback loop is much faster and much greater, much more efficient with a visual input. But also, if you don't get it right away, it's easier to access that content more quickly. So just a lot easier. And then there's a 40% higher consistency in presentation, which makes a ton of sense. If everybody's watching the same video on the same content, it's always going to be consistent. And I promise you, if you come and watch this video, this webinar, the next time we do it, the content will generally be the same, but Jessica and I will present it slightly differently based upon the questions and the participation, and there's a whole range of things that might make the flow be a little bit different. Jessica, I see a question that popped up.
Yeah, question from Sabrina. So in the context of this, what are we referring to as online training?
Online training would be content that is delivered over the web to a learner. So this can be video. This research was actually performed related to more traditional e-learning with some video elements in it, but this is more about traditional e-learning courses. But this is computer, what we used to call computer-based training, but this is delivered over the internet to either a desktop, laptop, and in today's world, we would also add to that mobile devices such as tablet computers or smartphones. Okay.
All right. I have a couple of additional questions, Chris, if that's okay. I
Yeah.
think next we're going into some of the advantages, but question from John. He asks, so is a well-written article more effective than a poorly done video, or does it depend on the audience?
Well, you know, it always comes down to the quality of the content. I mean, if you put a crummy piece of video in front of somebody, and it's not built with sound instructional design principles, it's not built with, you know, effective subject matter expertise behind it, what's the effectiveness of that delivery? It's not going to be very high. So a well-written article that's, you know, been vetted, if it's delivered by a subject matter expert, that's going to be a superior piece of content. The problem, unfortunately, with that is the learner's probably going to remember the video better, which gets back to the point that Jessica was making earlier, and I think she made it really well, about the YouTube. You know, there's all this free content out there. The problem with so much of it is we have no idea who built it, what their motivation was for it, whether they're true subject matter experts. And I don't want to disparage everything that's on YouTube, because there is some really super content on YouTube. You know, we publish content. We have a YouTube channel ourselves that we put out there. I'd like to think that content's pretty good. And one of my very favorite bits of content I've ever seen is on YouTube. It's called Death by PowerPoint. It's just a fantastic bit of content, and that's free. But just conversely, there's also all kinds of stuff at YouTube that you just look at and you're kind of going, oh my gosh, and people are going to believe this. So you do have to be very, very careful when you're looking at the, you know, the content. People will remember video, but from a learning perspective and learning effectiveness perspective, the content itself, content is king. The content is going to matter. Was the content built with sound instructional design principles in mind? Was the content built by a subject matter expert? Is the content logical? Does it flow? Does it stay on topic? Is it, you know, consistent with what, you know, the learner's experience is? Is it going to help advance organizational goals? All of those things matter. So it's very, very important to, you know, make sure that you're delivering quality content first and then pay attention to the modality second. I don't know if that's a great answer to the question or not, but I think that's the fairest answer that I can give. Jessica, was that a fair answer, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think content always matters more than the method. So, I mean, if you think about delivery and methods always going to be changing, but there's still pieces that are, you know, classics that still resonate with people today. So we're still reading books, or we're referring back to pieces of really strong content that's still making an impression, and people are still learning from that. So I think it's always content first, method and delivery second.
Yeah, there's a great comment here from Sabrina Yvette. I could argue that online training is only effective if it is short. A 2-hour online class can take 4 days because many of us are used to 3 to 6 minute YouTube short attention spans. She's right. Couple that with the, you know, the interruptions and the short bursts that we get at work. So yeah, great point. I agree actually with that. So then let's move to the advantages of video. There are a range of them. First, lower costs. This is a very, very cost-effective way to deliver content, high-quality content, to your employees. Extended reach. You can get the same bit of content to everybody, so you know it's going to be consistent. You can make sure that everybody's gotten it. I love this one. The preservation of knowledge. Going back to that Aberdeen study, that was one of the great advantages that the participants in that study noted about user-generated video. So, for instance, there was even a use case that was noted there. Employees had found some shortcuts through systems and processes and had recorded videos, some how-to videos of their own inside the organization. And that's institutional knowledge that never could have been preserved as effectively as it was by allowing the employees to record and save and upload their own videos. So it was a really effective tool, a very effective mechanism for the preservation of knowledge that then can be delivered in a very effective way to subsequent employees. I love this one, the showing of soft skills. Jessica posed this as a reflection question for us earlier. does video work well to train people in soft skills area and the explanation of complex concepts? The answer to both of these questions is a resounding yes. Now, think about the ways that we learn soft skills, and the ways that we really catch on to complex concepts. It's frequently from watching or observing the behaviors of others, one, and two, on the explanation of complex concepts, is being able to go back and repeat content, think about it, gather new information, and keep coming back to it. Let's talk about the observable behaviors. There's that 70-20-10 rule that we learn 70% of what we need to perform effectively at work from self-study, that is things that we do on our own, self-directed learning, 20% from observing others, social learning, and 10% from formal training. Video crosses all of those areas. When a video is presented in a scenario base, that is, they set up an office and they show people interacting, this is a fantastic way for people to dive into difficult conversations in performance reviews, complex situations dealing with very difficult gray areas concerning harassment or bullying or how to supervise. So whole sales training, customer service training, when you've got a difficult customer on the phone, you can observe. So rather than doing a role play in a classroom where people might be uncomfortable and not behave naturally, you can watch a video and react to it and understand it. And being able to observe that content, see the good and the bad, and sometimes by watching humorous videos you can pick up a lot. This is a fantastic way to teach soft skills and explain complex concepts. We see this happening over and over and over with some of the more sophisticated, best-in-breed videos that many of the vendors that we work with are producing on a regular basis. Really some outstanding work in this space that's emerging in today's marketplace. This is another way to kind of think about these short chunks of video. So when I first learned how to build online content, I was always taught that you chunk content, that I think about your content in 5 to 7 minute chunks, and you string the chunks together and bundle them up into a course. That's a course. And that's how we built them. So they get put together in this basket, and here's your traditional e-learning course. The problem is our employees don't always need the entire course. They just need a little piece, a little nugget of it along the way. Think about, let's use Excel as an example. I deal with pivot tables and pivot charts quite a bit. Every time I go to work, I seem to forget how to, put the column in the right place and the row in the right place and work with the filters. I don't want to go look through a 1-hour Excel course. I just want to go quickly to that one piece that reminds me how to set up my filter in my column. I want to look at a 2 or 3 minute nugget on that one item. Well, that is the most common way people need workplace problems to be solved. A specific piece of content in the moment of need, right when they need it, and that's what they need. And that's what learning, that's what chunking. We learned to do that a long time ago in instructional design, and that's exactly what short-form video is. Rather than weaving 7 short-form videos together into one long course, we keep the chunks separate, and we just publish them as 7 separate courses in a series, learning nuggets that our employees can access one piece at a time. So we want to begin to think about developing a video-focused content strategy to take advantage of all of these opportunities. So you have to start thinking about, selecting your content. Do I buy it? Do I build it? There's certainly content that we should all think about building. Go back to the use case I gave you earlier, that specific user-generated content that had to do with some shortcuts relating to your own product. Perfect illustration of a great use case for building your own. It's content specific to your organization, stuff that only your employees are going to know. But buying content, things like emotional intelligence, soft skills, compliance, Excel training, those sort of broad-based general skills, there isn't any reason to spend valuable time, energy, and effort building that content. You can buy it. You have to think carefully about how you're going to deploy it and deliver it. This needs to be a part of your content strategy. How will my employees access this content once we get it? And I'm telling you, you gotta keep in mind mobile delivery. And then once you have all of this content pulled together, you've selected it, you've got it in a great platform so everybody can get to it, you then have to market the availability of it. Continue to market and let people know the value of it, why they should absorb it, how it can help them do their jobs. It's an ongoing thing. This is a great quote. I love this quote from Jesse Bray. The world is changing. People are changing. To be effective, our employee training is changing to meet them where they are. This is a great example of a superb use of internally generated content. Here's a QR code up here by this device, so somebody can come along, they flash their smartphone at that QR code, and here's this blade guard replacement and service video that shows up. You can see it's 1 minute and 21 seconds. There it is. Perfect use of a single isolated learning nugget of content that an employee can use in the moment of need to service a single piece of equipment. And this is a wonderful, creative, and interesting use of video that's delivered on a mobile device. So you're thinking about that content. You got the build. You build it yourself like Tony Roma did. Do you borrow? Do you go out and access free resources such as Death by PowerPoint, or do you buy it? And for small, mid-sized companies, probably want to build about 10%, borrow about 40%. That could be links of blog posts, but you probably want to buy about half of the content you're using just because of the cost associated with building. For large organizations with big, complex learning training departments with lots of instructional designers and developers, you can probably build more of your content, borrow about the same, but buy about 10%. So this is just a rule of thumb. In our experience, this tends to work. And for large organizations, we're talking about 2,500 to 3,000 employees or more. That's fairly typical. Not uniform by any stretch of imagination, but more uniform more often than not. But the deployment and delivery, this is a piece of this that is exceedingly important, and a lot of organizations kind of sort of skip over this. They think, okay, so we got the content, great. So we're all good to go, right? We got our online content. We got a learning management system, and we got all these courses loaded in it, and let's move on. You can't stop there. You have to think carefully about 3 critical elements as they relate to your specific organization. Your workplace demographics, and this is a whole range of elements with demographics. The technology literacy of your employees, the age of your employees, the comfort level with technology of these folks is going to be extremely important. The behaviors that they exhibit, are they exploratory? Are they curious? Are they going to get out and try things on their own? Do they need to be encouraged? Do they need to be constantly marketed to? And then your technology, what do you have currently available? And going back to that Cisco bring your own device to work trend, your employees are already, a lot of them are already bringing their own devices to work, so don't shy away from mobile just because you think some of your employees won't use it. A large percentage of your employee population are probably ahead of you there and will be very, very receptive to this. But this is an example of the whole range of technologies that best-in-class learning content strategies can take into account: desktop, laptop, tablet, and mobile. Okay? And then the last, but certainly not the least important piece of this strategy is the marketing and support. Several years ago, I attended a conference in which the IT training director for IT&T, I think, started her session and said, "I'm not in training, I'm in marketing." And I've come to really appreciate the wisdom of what she said working here at Biz Library for these years. A huge part of our job as learning and development professionals and HR professionals and people that are passionate about learning is convincing others to be just as passionate as we are. And that is a sort of a fundamental foundational marketing challenge, whether we want to think about it that way or not. Marketing is explaining to others the value of a product or a service so that they are willing to give it a try. And that's exactly how we have to think about our training program. We have to explain the value of it to somebody so that they're willing to give it a try. And in order to do that, we have to target our message so that each individual understands the old-fashioned, what's in it for me, how's it going to help me perform my job better, going back to that adult learning theory. You have to prove relevance, honor them, respect them, but show them how it's going to help them do their jobs better. And then be creative. Have some fun with this. Beat the 3 p.m. slump. You know, take a quick break from the drudgery, do a 5-minute video. Start your way to smart way to start your day. Get a little bit smarter to start your day. Here's a 10-minute video or a 5-minute video, something like that. There's all kinds of different ways that you can do this, but have some fun with it. Do seasonal things. I mean, this is a really important piece of it. And as you're thinking about how to get information and marketing and the value out to your organization, think about the flow of information to your organization. How do you formally communicate things like open enrollment or big, sort of big initiatives? But then step back and think about the informal flow of information. Who are those opinion leaders and informal leaders, sort of those go-to people that are scattered throughout your organization? Get them involved too, because they will be hugely helpful to spread the word. Provide context, provide relevancy to everything you're doing, and you're going to be in a really good place if you think about it that way. All right, Jessica, I am going to pause for a second, get a drink, and turn this over to you to wrap up, and we should have some time for questions.
Sure, happy to, Chris. So actually I'll take the ball back, but a quick case study from a BizLibrary client. So this client is a Nationwide Dental Insurance. This is a case study from their call center. So they have a great idea. So thinking about a call center environment, the biggest challenge is really that they're constantly taking incoming calls. So it's close to impossible to get them to do any sort of training while they're on the clock. So they came up with this idea. It's called tag training. So one call center employee is off the phone for, 3 to 10 minutes to do a short training video, and they pick videos that are fun. That's going to be a nice break from their day. So we have a series called Cutting Edge Communication. It's almost like The Office. And gets to know the characters and put it into a training video setting. But anyway, so they complete the course, and then they tag their cube neighbor. So then it's that employee's turn to take the same course, while the first employee then gets back onto the phones. And they carry the tag game throughout the call center, so for the entire day. And then at the end of the day, they take some time to talk about, what everyone took away from the course, just kind of reflect on what was funny or what they learned from it or how much they might apply it that week in their day-to-day work. So it's a fun way. I mean, it's a good way for them to be able to maintain workflow and keep that service standard up. And it's also a good way if you come with the objection of employees saying that they don't have time for training. Look at what you have that's available that is just-in-time training, so things that are non-disruptive to their workday, and really emphasize that in what you're communicating and the marketing strategy that you put into place. So BizLibrary, we provide more than 7,000 online videos and e-learning courses to our clients. So it's set up to where employees have unlimited access. So the videos and courses are available on demand, and most of them are mobile friendly. So if you'd like to try out anything included in our online content library, or if you want to try out 7 online video courses right now, just let us know. I'll put up a short poll in just a second, and we'll send you a follow-up email that you can access these videos right away if you'd like. All right, so I'll put the poll up. Questions that we got in, Chris. So I do have a couple that I've been holding on to until the end. All right, so this question is from Alice. So she says, as boomer myself, I also read newspapers and periodicals. I enjoy the feel of a book and newspaper in hand. Having said that, as we as a society get away from the written word, how are we accommodating the aging workforce that's not responsive to video as much as maybe Gen X, Gen Y, or Z workers would be to learning?
Well, let me start with, Alice, by the way, great question. I'm right there with you. I'm totally there with you on this one. Let me start with a couple of observations, both personal and professional, and then share a little bit of information, some data with you here. I share that bias towards the tactile experience of a book in a newspaper. I love to do that. I love to spend my Sunday morning with the newspaper spread out and my cup of coffee, and I love the feel of a great book. That said, I am moving more and more towards the absorption of more and more video in a whole range of contexts. And we cited that data early in the webinar about the average amount of TV that Americans absorb, 40 hours a week. Surprisingly, and this may surprise you, the generation that watches the most video on television a week is boomers. We watch more TV than our younger compatriots, our younger colleagues. So we're there in some ways. We're already watching a lot of video. So even though we may want to read and we're more comfortable reading information, we're also becoming more and more attuned to video as a medium for entertainment and communication and information sharing. So don't make the mistake that I made, frankly, assuming sort of blanket that, here are these broad, generalizations that apply to everybody all the time, because what you're going to find, I think, is a higher degree of receptivity to video-based training amongst boomers than you might think. The trick, and here's where it gets to be interesting, is to find a video-based collection of content that has a wide enough variety of video styles that you can find video presentation styles that appeal across generations. That's ultimately the key. For instance, boomers will not react particularly well to sort of the Tosh 2.0, real snarky, sarcastic kind of stuff. We do respond very well to more traditional approached video. So it does work. The trick is to find a solution that has enough flexibility to give you the choices necessary to appeal to everybody. But they will do it. They will do it.
Right, and Chris, I'd just add that if you look at, I did the comparison earlier between traditional e-learning course and Learning Nuggets. So not saying that if you've built more traditional e-learning courses, not that you have to throw those out the window, but it's rather thinking of a way to make it more flexible. So breaking it apart. Maybe with the video you could provide a link to the Word document that has a transcript that's going to appeal to different learning styles and preferences. Maybe you also provide with that video a job aid or kind of like a cliff note for the video. You could help to kind of appeal to some of those different preferences as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jessica.
All right, so another question from Sandy. So she asks, we do software training for clients and employees. What are some recommendations for using video for software training? Is it more performance support? Can it be used for learning an entire software, or is it a blend?
It's a blend. Sandy, that's actually this is a perfect illustration. Your question's actually spot on and very intuitive, I might add. But software training is a great use of video in a blended situation. So step back and think about the sort of applications. We just went live with Salesforce here for a new CRM in May. And the training that we got, some of the video-based content, worked really, really well to introduce the application to us. So here's how you get started. Here are the basics. Here's how you do this. Here's how you set up an account. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. And so that was a fantastic way to learn the basics and ins and outs of the application. In other words, the training. And now some of those same video elements and additional video elements, much shorter, work wonderfully for performance support. Now wait a minute, how do I turn on those report filters? They work beautifully both ways. So today's learning can be tomorrow's performance support, and it really does work wonderfully in both ways. one of the things that I think the learning profession made a mistake with years and years ago, and I don't really know why people got all hung up on it, is I got kind of hung up on a distinction between training and performance support. I don't see a difference between the two, to be perfectly honest. Content is content. Content is anything that helps us answer a question we're asking in the moment. So whether it's questions that we need, to learn something ahead of time, or something that we have a problem with a client or something on the phone right now, that's content. So your question is spot on, and video will work wonderfully for software.
All right, great questions today. I'll go ahead and wrap up right at time. For those of you that are attending for HRCI credit, I put a link to the certificate in the chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Just a reminder, I'll also be sending out an email with a link to the certificate, as well as the webinar recording and the slides within 24 hours. You should actually look for it in your inbox in about 2 hours from now. Upcoming webinars, so we do these webinars every week. They are free to attend, so hope you'll consider joining us for a future session. We have one coming up next week, how to measure employee training effectiveness and impact, Sink or Swim, supporting the transition to new manager, and then the following week, how to use off-the-shelf training content. So all of the upcoming webinars and registration links are on our website as bizlibrary.com/webinars. So again, thanks so much for joining us for today's webinar. Hope you'll join us for a future session, and have a great rest of the week.
Sorry for typing there, everybody. Apologize, but thank you very, very much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week.